She just got lucky, probably slept her way up. That's what my stepmother said into a microphone at the promotion party she and my father had thrown for me in front of 40 guests. 3 feet from the fireplace I helped them pay for. Doreen, the woman my father married 6 years after we buried my mom, had just called me a whore. In the living room I grew up in the house I had been keeping the lights on for, month after month for 3 years. I set my glass down, I said her name. My father stood up out of his chair, walked across the rug, and slapped me with the flat of his right hand. It made a sound like a book being closed. "You think you're better than us?" My stepbrother laughed. My stepsister laughed a little louder, like she was rewarding him for it. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I took the phone out of my clutch, tapped one thing, and turned toward the TV. If this is already hitting you in the chest, please take a second to like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel keep telling stories like this. And drop your city and your local time in the comments below. I love knowing where in the world you're listening from. I'm Emmeline Bristow, 32, a marketing VP at a consumer brands company in Cincinnati. My company announced the promotion on March 15th. 5 days later, my father and Doreen called to offer a party for their beloved daughter. By the end of March, I had decided I would go. I had also put every chase confirmation I needed into one folder on my phone. This is the story of the family I paid to keep alive for 3 years. The same family that called me a freeloader at their own party, and what I did the night I finally stopped paying. Let's go back to the beginning of it. That Saturday, April 4th, 2026, started at my desk. I was in the office at 8 in the morning on a weekend, because that's what promotions to VP feel like. The party is on Saturday, but the deck for Monday isn't going to build itself. I had a mug of black coffee. I had my phone face down on my second monitor. I had somewhere in the back of my head the flat little pressure you get before rain. Doreen called me a little before 11. I let it ring. She called again a few minutes later. I picked up. "Emmeline, sweetheart," she said in her party voice. "Your father and I are so excited about tonight. Everything's coming together. The Kaplans are bringing wine, Barbara's making that spinach dip, Peyton's doing flowers. It's really something, sweetheart." Doreen had not called me sweetheart since she'd married my father in November of 2008, when I was 14. And she needed to look kind for a photograph. She had not used the word love about me in front of anyone, ever. "That's nice," I said. 6:30? Do you need us to save you a seat next to your father? I'll find my own seat. I hung up. I sat with the phone in my palm, and I did not put it down for a long time. In my Gmail, in a folder I had built the week before Christmas, 36 messages were tagged with a small yellow star. I could feel them, the way you feel a bruise even when nothing is touching it. At noon, I locked my laptop. In the parking garage, I sat in the driver's seat of my car, and I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white and my palms went pink again. My mother had been dead for nearly 24 years. My father had been alive for every one of them. "Okay," I said out loud. "I'm going." I started the engine. "I have to tell you about my mom." Not for long. She is not the story. But she is the reason the story exists. So, my mother's name was Amanda. She died of ovarian cancer at Christ Hospital in Mount Auburn on the 11th of October, 2002. I was 8. I remember exactly one thing about her voice, and it is that she used to sing me a very old lullaby that she made up herself. It was about a small brown bird that always came home. She sang it wrong on purpose. She always changed the last line. In November of 2008, 6 years after we buried her, my father married Doreen. I was 14. He did not ask me. He did not sit me down. He did not explain what would change. That month, Doreen walked through the front door with Tanner 8 and Peyton 6. 2 weeks later, my bookshelf was in the basement. Peyton was in my bed, and I was in what used to be my father's home office on a fold-out couch, listening to a stranger's small daughter cry in what used to be my room, on the mattress that still smelled faintly of my mother's laundry detergent. I taught myself to cook that year. I taught myself to fold sheets. And in 2012, at 18, I left for Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. A scholarship covered part of it. A bookstore job in downtown Oxford covered the rest. By the time I left that house, I had made a quiet promise to myself. I would never ask my father for anything again. I kept that promise for 12 years. Then, in April of 2023, he called me. I had been at Halston Reeve Consumer Brands for 7 years by then. I was a senior marketing manager. I had my own apartment in Over the Rhine, and my own car, and my own dentist, and my own tax accountant. And on that Wednesday morning in April, I had absolutely no reason to expect the phone to ring. "Emmy," my father said. His voice was smaller than I remembered. "Emmy, I hate to ask. I really do. It's just, the back is bad. Ever since I had to retire early in 2020, things have been tight. Doreen isn't working right now. And the mortgage, just 3 months, sweetheart. Please, sweetheart." There it was again. I said yes. I did not know then that I had just walked, in a quiet office lit by a screensaver, into a trap that would take me 3 years to walk back out of. The first transfer was on April 14th, 2023. I logged into Chase online, set up an external transfer of $5,000 from my checking to the joint account my father shared with Doreen, and typed the memo the way I typed all memos to family. Gift, family utilities, and mortgage. The first month, he called me on the day it arrived. He said thank you 3 separate times. He sounded relieved. He said, "This is such a help, M.A. Just 3 months. I'm going to talk to a financial advisor." The second month, he called and thanked me once. The third month, I did the math on my kitchen counter. 3 months, $15,000, and I called him on a Sunday morning when Doreen was at her Pilates class. "Dad, it's been 3 months. Are you good?" There was a long pause. I could hear the coffee maker on his side. "Well," he said, it's still tight. She's looking for something, and the roof, we had that leak in the guest room. So, could you do one more? Just one more." I did one more. And in the 4th month, when I asked again, he said the same thing, 1 word at a time. I want you to hear that clearly, because from the outside, you can see what was happening. There was never a deadline. There was never a plan. There was only ever 1 more month, and every 1 more month was a doorway. And behind every doorway was another one, and the only person walking through them was me. I was 30 years old. I was carrying my father's mortgage, and my stepmother's cable bill, and my stepbrother's high-speed internet, and my stepsister's phone plan. And I was telling myself I was doing it because my mother would want me to. My mother had been dead for 21 years. My mother had never met these people. Christmas of 2023 was the first time I heard it out loud. We were in a neighbor's living room in Mount Lookout, the Kaplan's place, for their annual open house. I was standing by the punch bowl, next to a Douglas fir that Nora Kaplan had decorated with tiny brass ornaments shaped like violins. Doreen was 2 feet away, with a wine glass and an audience. She did not know I was behind her. "Emmeline?" she was saying to Barbara Henley, who ran the little book club. "Oh, she's so caught up in her career. It's fine, of course, but at some point you look at your family and you wonder what happened to the daughter part. Tanner, at least, calls me every day." Barbara laughed, the small, polite laugh of a woman who knows better and can't say so. Tanner had not called Doreen every day in his entire 23 years. Tanner had, that very morning, texted her the word food to see what was for breakfast. I did not turn around. I stood by the punch bowl. I finished my drink. I said goodnight to Nora, and I drove home to my apartment in Over the Rhine. And I opened my laptop and I made a Word document called notes.docx. And at the top I wrote, December 23rd, 2023, 8:14 p.m. Doreen to Barbara Henley, Kaplan, open house. Emmeline is so caught up in her career. What happened to the daughter part? 2 days later, I made the transfer for January anyway, $5,000. I want to tell you why I kept transferring. I've been asked this 100 times by my therapist and by my uncle Roland and by 2 friends who don't understand why any adult woman would keep doing that. And the only true answer I have is this. My mother was in the room. Every time I clicked confirm, my mother was in the room. Not really, but in that private way we keep the people we've buried. She had told me before she died. I was 8. She was tired. She was in a bed that was too high for me to climb into properly. She had told me to be good to my father, because he was going to need me. 21 years of me being good to my father. And my father was still, apparently, going to need me. The pivot came on August 3rd of 2025. Doreen had her knee done at Christ Hospital, total right knee replacement, outpatient, $29,000 total, of which insurance covered $17,000. And of the remaining 12, my father called me on July 27th and said, "Sweetheart, I know it's a lot. We don't have that on hand right now." I transferred $12,000 that same afternoon. Memo: Doreen surgery copay. I flew back from a client meeting in Chicago 3 weeks later and drove straight to my father's house with a bouquet of white peonies. Because that's what my mother had liked at her wedding, and it was the only kind of flower I knew how to buy for a woman I did not like. Doreen was in the driveway, in a sundress and a knee brace, laughing with Nora Kaplan. And I told him, "Randy, we do not accept help. We take care of our own. That's how we were raised. I'm doing perfectly fine. The surgeon said I have the recovery of a woman in her 40s. Nora Kaplan spotted me first. Her face did that small collapse polite people do when they realize the person they've been discussed by has arrived. Doreen turned. Doreen looked at the peonies in my hand. Doreen said, "Oh, Emmeline, you didn't need to." I stood on the driveway with a bouquet I had paid for and a copay I had paid for and a knee brace I had paid for. And I understood very quickly that I was going to have to stand there and let this woman refuse to acknowledge me in front of a neighbor. I gave her the flowers. I said, "Feel better, Doreen." I walked to my car and I drove home and I did not cry, and I made the transfer for September anyway, because my mother was still in the room. The last thing that happened before I started to change was in December of 2025. I was on a client trip to Amsterdam. I missed the Kaplan's Christmas party. Nora Kaplan called me the morning after from her car because she had had 2 glasses of wine at that party and had heard something she thought I ought to know. "Emmeline, sweetheart, I don't want to be a busybody, but your stepmother said something last night, and I've been sitting on it for 8 hours, and I can't." I put down the coffee. "She said I'm going to say this exactly the way she said it, honey. She said, and Barbara Henley and Ray Willis were both right there," she said. "Emmeline only sends what she sends because she's still paying us back for growing up in that house. It's not generosity, it's guilt." There was a long silence on the line. "Emmeline," Nora said. "Honey, are you sending them money?" I did not answer her because I could not answer her. I said thank you, and I hung up and I sat in a hotel window in Amsterdam and watched a canal barge chug past a lamppost. And after a while, I opened the Gmail app on my phone and I typed into the search bar, Chase transfer. 33 results ordered newest first. I scrolled to the bottom. The oldest one was dated April 14th, 2023. If you have ever paid to keep a family that was, at the same time, telling the neighbors they were doing it themselves, and you have been trying at some level to earn something from them that you were never actually going to earn, tell me in the comments where you were the first time you knew. I read every one. It matters. I came home from Amsterdam on the 22nd of December. I did not go to my father's house for Christmas. I told him I had the flu. He said, "Well, rest up. Merry Christmas, M.A." He did not ask me to come by for a plate the next day. For the first 10 days of January 2026, I did not answer my father's phone calls. He called me a total of 4 times. The messages went in order. "Hey, checking in. Hey, Doreen wants to know if you're doing all right. M.A., please call your father back." And finally, one voicemail that I saved and did not delete, in which he said, in a voice that had a small, mean grip to it, "Emmeline, what do you owe me? What do you owe me? Call me." I sat with that voicemail for 4 days, on repeat, in the passenger seat of my own car in a parking garage, and I did not know what to do with it. I finally went to my company's employee assistance program, and I made an appointment with a therapist because I had never had one, and because if the man who raised me was going to record himself asking me what I owed him, I needed a stranger in my corner. The therapist's name was Inez. She was in her late 40s, and her office was in a small suite off Reading Road. And there were 3 plants on her windowsill and a framed print of a heron on the wall. On our first meeting, on a Tuesday in the middle of January, I sat on her couch and I told her, in one long, unbroken sentence, that I had been paying my father's mortgage for 32 months, and that my stepmother had just told the entire neighborhood that I was doing it out of guilt. Ines let me finish. Then she said very quietly, "Emmeline, may I ask you a question?" "Yes." "Have you ever asked yourself why you are still transferring the money?" I opened my mouth to answer her. I closed it. I did that 3 times. Ines waited. I said, "Because I keep hoping my father is going to notice." Ines nodded once. "Notice what, specifically?" "That I love him, that I'm his kid, that my mother would be proud of me, that I am not the debt he raised, that I am a person." Ines looked at me for a while. "And if he never notices," she said, "how many more months are you willing to pay?" I did not answer her. But that night I went home and I opened notes.docx and I scrolled through 38 entries, every Christmas dinner comment, every phone call about a broken dishwasher, every text from Doreen that said, in different arrangements of words, the same thing, which was, the Chase transfer isn't in yet, and we have the electric due on the 18th. And I understood very clearly that my father was never going to notice. The next morning on the 10th of January, 2026, Doreen texted me, "Chase transfer hasn't hit yet, honey. Everything all right?" I did not answer her for 28 hours. My father called me the next evening in a voice that was pretending to be casual. "MA, just is everything all right?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm reviewing my budget." There was the tiniest, briefest pause on his end. And then, more carefully than he had ever spoken to me in his life, he said, "Well, take your time. Take your time, sweetheart." I hung up, and I understood for the first time that my father was not confused about what I was doing. My father was afraid. That was the beginning. On February 17th, Uncle Roland texted me. In January, he had stopped by my father's house and noticed something on 3 utility bills. Auto pay from Chase, ending 7823. He had scanned the payment lines before he left. "MA, lunch this Saturday. Something I need to show you. Not urgent, but not urgent." I stared at that text for a long time. My Uncle Roland was my father's older brother, 65, retired from medical equipment work, divorced, quiet, kind, and deeply suspicious of his own brother. He had sent me a Christmas card every year of my life. He had never asked me to lunch. I typed back, "Saturday morning, Mabel's Coffee on Vine, 9. He wrote back, "I'll be there at 8:45. Uncle Roland was already in a booth by the window at Mabel's Coffee when I got there on February 21st. He had a plain black coffee, a manila folder, and the same guarded expression he wore at funerals. He stood when he saw me. "MA. Uncle Raleigh." I ordered tomato soup and hot tea. I did not touch the folder. "How's the back?" he asked me. He always started with my back because I had thrown it out once at a family barbecue in 2019, and to him it was still a shocking event. "It's fine, Raleigh. How's the boiler?" He smiled at me. He was buying time, and we both knew it. He picked up the folder. He put it on the table between us. He said, "I don't want to be dramatic, Emmy, but I want to ask you a straight question. And I want you to give me a straight answer." "Ask." He opened the folder. Inside were 3 printed scans of utility bills. Duke Energy of Ohio, addressed to Randall Bristow at the Mount Lookout House, dated October, November, and December of 2025. On each scan, in the payment history line near the bottom, were the same words, "Auto pay from account Chase, ending 7823. "MA, my uncle said, "do you have a Chase checking account ending in 7823? I looked at the bills for a long time. My tea came. I let it sit. "Yes," I said. Uncle Roland did not react. He folded his hands. "How long?" 3 years. "Every month?" 5,000 a month. "And the surgery?" 12,000 more. Total, $192,000. My Uncle Roland closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, there was a thing in his face I had never seen there before. It was not anger. It was the older, colder cousin of anger. It was the look of a man who had suspected something for a long time and who had just been given permission to know it. "MA," he said, "they have told this whole neighborhood and half the family and the guys at his old shop, they have told everyone that they are doing this on their own. Randy told me, sitting in his own backyard on the 4th of July, that his pension covers the mortgage. He looked me in the eye when he said it. I looked at the bills. "They're throwing a party for me in April," I said. Uncle Roland raised his eyebrows. "For your promotion, for my promotion." He took a slow breath. He looked out the window at Race Street. He looked back at me. How do you want to do this, Emmy? I don't know yet. Are you going to just cancel the transfer? I don't know. If I cancel it quietly, he lies about that too. He tells the neighbors I abandoned him. He tells your side of the family I got greedy. He tells my company, if he can figure out who to call, that I'm unstable. I know him, Raleigh. He'll rewrite it. Uncle Roland nodded slowly. So you want the neighbors? I want the neighbors. He tapped the folder once. Then I'm coming to the party. And when you want me to say something, I'll say it. You just tell me when. I put my hand on his over the folder. Thank you, Raleigh. Don't thank me. I should have said something 2 years ago. I went home to Over the Rhine that afternoon, and I did the thing I'd been afraid to do since October. I sat down at my kitchen island with a glass of Malbec. I opened Gmail on my laptop. I typed Chase transfer into the search bar, and I hit enter. 36 confirmations. 36 identical subject lines. Chase Bank external transfer confirmation, $5,000. Everyone dated on the 14th or 15th of each month. Everyone with the memo I had typed into it. Gift, family utilities, and mortgage. And one a single message dated August 3rd, 2025, $12,000. Memo, Doreen surgery copay. I printed all 37. I laid them out on my dining room table, vertically in 4 rows. 9999, and then the $12,000 one, alone at the head, like a stone at the top of a grave. I looked at it for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and I opened a text to Uncle Roland and I typed one line. I know when. I know how. I need you at that party. Sit close to the fireplace. Between the meeting with my uncle and the party, I had 6 weeks. I spent them the way an accountant spends the last week of tax season. Quietly, methodically, without letting anyone in the office see anything change in my face. The first thing I did was math. I had watched from the outside for 3 years. Now I sat down at my dining room table and I put the whole household on a spreadsheet. Mortgage. On the Mount Lookout house, per the county records I could pull from the Hamilton County Auditor's website. $2,200 and change, principal and interest. Property tax escrow, another $400. Homeowner's insurance, $150. Utilities in an Ohio winter, running from Duke Energy of Ohio and Cincinnati Bell. Another $800 to $1,200, depending on the month. Doreen's health premium, which I had once accidentally seen on a bill in the kitchen, $400. Their 2 car policies, one bundled with the house, around $200 and change. On the low end, $4,100 a month. On the high end, $4,500. My father's SSDI, which he had been receiving since 2024 and which I had seen on a mortgage statement, was about $1,900 a month. Doreen worked sometimes, teaching a private book club or picking up a shift at her friend's boutique on Erie Avenue. But she'd told Nora Kaplan she brought home about $250 a week and I only do it for fun. $250 a week, 4 weeks, $1,000 a month. Total household income, without me, $2,900. If I stopped, they were going to be short by $1,500 in the first month. By 90 days, they would be behind on the mortgage. By 6 months, the bank would have started foreclosure paperwork. I looked at it on the paper. That was the exact math of them. I did not want to foreclose on my father. I want you to hear that. Not for his sake, for mine. I wanted 40 people in a room to hear the truth. That is a different thing. The second thing I did was call Chase. I called Chase on a Tuesday morning and asked how quickly I could stop a recurring transfer from my account. The representative was polite. "You can cancel it from the app at any time, ma'am. Once you confirm the cancellation, the next scheduled transfer will not go through." "Right away?" "Right away. Can someone reverse it for the people receiving it?" "Not without your authorization. It is your recurring transfer." I sat very still. "Would you like to cancel it now?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "I just needed to know." "Of course, you can do it whenever you choose." I thanked her and hung up. I saved the confirmation details in my notes, then sat at my kitchen table with my hands folded in front of me. For the first time in 3 years, there was a small, clean, cold thing under my sternum, something like leverage. The third thing I did was call Uncle Roland. "Raleigh, the party's on April 4th, 6:30, in their living room. There will be about 40 people. Am I invited?" "Not officially, but you're coming as my guest. You can tell your brother that if you want. I already told Doreen that Uncle Raleigh is my +1. She said fine in the tone you would expect. He laughed once, dry, "I'll bet." "Raleigh, I want you to sit near the fireplace, in the little green chair, not by the couch. When I stand up and start talking, you'll know when. I want you to ask my father one question, that's all. One question." "What's the question?" I told him. He was quiet for a second. He said, "Aimee, when your father hears that question, with that room around him, he is not going to be able to lie. You understand that?" "I understand." "Okay," he said. "I'll ask it." The fourth thing I did was practical. I checked that my phone still connected to the living room TV. I had used it once at Thanksgiving to show Peyton a video of a bakery in Copenhagen, and the connection came up in seconds. Peyton had watched the screen and said, "Wow, you really are living the fancy life, chick." I had said nothing then. Now I was going to use the same television to show her mother 37 emails. The night before the party, I packed my phone charger, a backup battery, and the adapter I had used at Thanksgiving. I tested everything once in my apartment. Then I put it all in my clutch. I did not want any part of the truth to depend on luck. The fifth thing I did was rehearse. On the night of April 3rd, at 9:40 in the evening, in my apartment in Over the Rhine, in front of the full-length mirror by my closet, I said, out loud to my own reflection, one sentence. "Read them out loud." I said it 3 times. Then I said the harder sentence, the one that I would have to say to my father in front of 40 people. I said it once. I did not say it again. Then my phone buzzed. "Doreen, wear something nice tomorrow, sweetheart. Your dad and I want you to look proud." I did not answer. I got to the house at 6:15. I wore a gray suit, nothing showy, a single silver cuff on my left wrist, and a thin gold chain I'd bought for myself under my collar. My hair was up. Doreen opened the door in a wine-colored dress with a little cape at the shoulders. She hugged me sideways, in the way that people who don't like you hug you. And she said over my shoulder so Nora Kaplan on the porch could hear, "Emmeline, look at you. So professional." My father was in the front hallway. He had put on a jacket. He was smiling with his teeth. He said, "Aimee, come here." He hugged me. He had never in my adult life initiated a hug in that hallway. He whispered into the side of my hair, and this is the part I want you to remember. He whispered, "Honey, before you go say hi to people, come in the kitchen for a sec." I followed him in. Doreen followed us at a distance, and then, when my father raised one eyebrow at her, she stopped in the doorway. My father, in the kitchen, one arm around my shoulders in a way that had happened maybe 6 times in my whole life, said, Emmy, sweetheart, I know tonight is your night. I do. It's just one thing quickly. Doreen's other knee. The doctor thinks she's going to need the other side, maybe November. Do you think you'd be able to help with that too? He said it in the kitchen where I had learned to make grilled cheese at 9 years old, standing on a footstool alone. Because my mother was dead and my father was tired and no one had thought about lunch. I said, "Let's talk about it later, Dad." He squeezed my shoulder. He said, "That's my girl." I stepped out of his arm. I said, "I need to say hi to Uncle Raleigh." Doreen said from the doorway, "He's out back with the coats." I walked past her. In the back hall, I passed Tanner, who was on the couch with a PlayStation controller, watching a Bengals highlight reel on his phone. He glanced up. "VP, huh? Nice." "Thanks, Tanner. Don't get too big for us, chick." I did not stop walking. By 6:30, 40 people were inside. The Kaplans. Barbara Henley and her husband, Ray, from Doreen's book club. 2 women from her yoga class, one of whom was married to a dentist and made sure you knew that. My father's 3 former colleagues from the True Value store in Norwood. All of them retired now. All of them in their 60s. All of them still using the word "we" when they meant the store. Nora Kaplan's daughter, home from Ohio State for the weekend. My step-cousin, whose name I have never bothered to learn. And Uncle Roland, sitting exactly where I had asked him to sit, in the small green armchair to the left of the fireplace with a plate of crackers he was not eating, and a glass of water he was not drinking, and a soft, grave patience on his face that I loved him for. Doreen made her rounds. I heard her 3 times in 10 minutes tell 3 different clusters of guests, "We are so proud." Of course, we always taught her, hard work matters. It matters. I stood by the mantel with a glass of Pinot. I did not intend to finish. I felt the phone in my clutch under my arm. The thin chain at my throat was cool against my skin. At 6:45, my father walked to the center of the room, tapped his glass with a fork, and cleared his throat. "Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming. Doreen and we're just really happy tonight. M.A. has always been a serious kid, and she's put in the work, and it paid off to Emmeline and to the Bristow family. We take care of each other. That's what we do." 40 glasses lifted. Doreen from the couch said, "We take care of each other." Barbara Henley, who had been half listening, said, "Hear, hear." I lifted my glass an inch. I did not drink from it. Doreen picked up the microphone. It was a little handheld thing, one of those Bluetooth karaoke ones Peyton had bought for a birthday. Doreen tapped it twice. It squealed. Everyone, one more toast. I want to say something." The room quieted. "Emmeline, honey, we're just so proud. And I know it's her big night, I know, but I have to be honest since we're all family here. You all know Emmy. You all know she's a hard worker, nobody's saying she isn't. But let's be honest, ladies." Barbara Henley laughed a small, confused, polite laugh. Doreen leaned into the microphone. She was smiling. "She just got lucky. Probably slept her way up." There was a sound in the room that was worse than silence. It was the sound of 40 adults deciding at once that they had misheard. Peyton laughed. It was a short, sharp, delighted laugh. Tanner made a small, choking snort next to her. I set down my glass on the mantel next to a picture of my father and Doreen in Aruba in 2017. I said, "Doreen, I'm sorry. Say that again." Phase 8. Surveillance. Doreen turned. She had the smile of a woman who thinks she is in charge of a joke. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm teasing." "You said I probably slept my way up." She rolled her eyes elaborately for the room. It was a joke. I turned to my father. I said, in a voice I had been rehearsing in a mirror for months, "Dad, did you hear the woman you married call your daughter a whore in front of 40 people?" My father stood up out of his chair. He walked across the rug, crossed the distance between us in 3 steps, and in front of 40 guests, in a house I had been paying to keep the lights on in for 3 years, my father raised his open right hand and slapped me across the face. The sound was not dramatic. It was flat. It was a small closing sound. Barbara Henley made a small horrified noise. Nora Kaplan set her plate down on the coffee table. Uncle Roland's hands went, very carefully, into his lap. My father said, "You think you're better than us." I did not answer him. I did not look at him. Peyton laughed again, very softly into her wine glass. Tanner said, "Damn, chick, what's your problem?" I turned my head toward the TV. I reached into my clutch. I took out my phone. Doreen said, "Emmeline, honey, what are you doing?" Nobody answered her. I unlocked my phone and opened screen mirroring. Bristow living room TV appeared near the top of the list. I tapped it. The TV above the mantel blinked from black to blue. Then my Gmail filled the screen. Doreen said, Emmeline, that isn't necessary. Whatever this is, it isn't necessary." My father said, "M.A., put it down." He took 1 step toward me. Uncle Roland rose quietly from the little green armchair by the fireplace. My father saw him and stopped. I did not look at either of them. I opened Gmail's search bar and turned my phone so the room could see me type. Chase transfer 7823. I hit enter. 37 confirmation emails appeared on the TV. Newest first. At the top was March 14th, 2026. $5,000. Below it came February, January, December, then the rest of the same monthly transfer stretching back to April of 2023. Near the middle sat one different confirmation. August 3rd, 2025, $12,000. Memo, Doreen surgery copay. Every monthly subject line said the same thing. Chase Bank external transfer confirmation, $5,000. The names, dates, and amounts filled the screen in clean blue rows. They were not screenshots. They were not a speech. They were the record of every month I had chosen to believe my father would finally see me. I left the list there long enough for the room to understand that no one payment had made this house possible. It had been all of them. Doreen made a small sound. It was not a word. Somewhere in the room, a wine glass tilted. I heard it before I saw it. Red Pinot on Doreen's cream carpet. It was Doreen's wine glass. She had let go of it. My father did not sit down. He did not step forward either. He simply lost color, as if someone had drained the room out of him. His mouth opened once, then closed. Nothing came out. Uncle Roland took 1 step forward from the little green chair by the fireplace into the middle of the room and set his glass of water very gently on the mantel. "Randall," Uncle Roland said. His voice was as quiet as it had ever been in that room. "I want to ask you a question." My father did not turn to him. "Randy, look at me." My father turned. Uncle Roland said, "Have you, for the last 3 years, been living on your daughter's money?" The room did not move. My father opened his mouth. He closed it. Doreen said, in a voice 1 full step higher than her usual voice, "Randall, say no." My father did not say no. My father did not say anything. I said, "Uncle Raleigh, say it louder, so everyone hears." Uncle Roland turned to the room. He spoke without raising his voice. "For the last 36 months, my brother's mortgage, utilities, and his wife's health insurance have been paid by his daughter. Her $12,000 surgery was paid by his daughter, too. That's what those emails are. My niece has been paying for the roof this party is under. Nora Kaplan on the couch said, "Oh my God." Doreen said, That is not, it's a gift. It's a gift. Emmeline gave it. Emmeline chose to give it. That's what family does." I turned to Doreen for the first time. "Doreen, if it was a gift, why did you tell Nora Kaplan at her Christmas open house that you two were doing this on your own?" Doreen's mouth opened. I never. Nora Kaplan stood up from the couch. "You did, Doreen. You said it to me at my own dining table. You told me Randy had a supplementary retirement package. You told me you had never taken a dime from Emmy in your life. You said it 2 years ago, and you said it again this September." Nora looked around the room. She said, "I have to say this because I can't sit here and pretend I didn't hear it." Doreen said 3 months ago that Emmeline had, quote, "never even offered to help." She said it to Barbara and me and Ray. And I believed her because why wouldn't I? Barbara Henley, from her armchair, stood up too. "Doreen, I have to say something. In September at book club, my daughter called me because her son needed emergency dental work and it was $6,000. And she didn't have it. And I gave her the money. And I told you at book club, and you laughed. You laughed at my daughter. You said, and I remember this exactly, you said, 'My kids would never ask for a penny, that's how we raised them. Randy and I always said we would starve before we took charity.' You said starve in September." I tapped my screen. On the TV, the Gmail list scrolled down slowly. Everyone watched. I stopped on the August 3rd row. I zoomed in with my thumb. The number $12,000 glowed as big as a headline. I said, "This is Doreen's knee, $12,000, on August 3rd of last year." Peyton had her phone in her hand, recording now. Doreen saw it and reached for it too fast. The phone slipped from Peyton's fingers and hit the rug. Peyton stared at her mother. Then her face folded. "Mom," Tanner said, "what did you do?" Doreen looked from one of them to the other. "Tanner, please, your sister doesn't understand." But Tanner was no longer looking at Peyton. He was looking at his mother with the stunned, distant expression of someone seeing a parent clearly for the first time. I looked at my father. I said very quietly, so that only the front half of the room could hear, "Dad, $192,000, 3 years. I have one question. He did not raise his head. "Did you ever, one single time, think about paying me back? Or were you only ever thinking about how to tell the neighbors that you were doing it on your own?" My father sat down in his chair. It was more of a collapse than a sit. The chair took him. He put his face in one hand. The other hand hung at his side, useless. Doreen said, "Randall." He did not look up. Uncle Roland said, "Randy, answer her." My father did not answer. I opened the Chase app on my phone. I said without looking away from my father, "I'm going to do something now, and I want the whole room to see it." I opened Chase and pulled up the recurring transfer. $5,000. Pay. Bristow household. Next scheduled. April 15th, 2026. I mirrored the page to the TV. The emails disappeared, replaced by the transfer details above the fireplace. I tapped cancel. A confirmation box filled the screen. "Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring transfer?" Doreen made a sound behind me. "Emmeline, no. Please, the mortgage is due on the 18th. Please, just listen." I tapped yes. The screen refreshed. Recurring transfer canceled. No further transfers to Bristow household will be scheduled. Doreen sat down hard on the arm of the couch. My father did not look up from his hand. I turned the phone off. The TV went black, and the living room seemed smaller without it. I put my phone in my clutch. I closed the clutch. I turned to my father. Dad, I have paid for this family for 3 years. I hoped every month that you would notice, that you would stop me, that you would say thank you, that you would say I'm sorry. You never did. Not one time. He did not raise his head. I came here tonight in front of 40 of your neighbors because I wanted these 40 people to know. I did not come here for an apology. I don't need one. I would not believe it if I got one. I turned to Doreen. Doreen, you told this room 7 minutes ago that I slept my way to a promotion. I want you to hear me. I have paid your mortgage. I have paid your gas bill. I have paid the copay on your knee. I have paid Peyton's phone. I have paid Tanner's high-speed internet. I have paid your health insurance for 3 years. So starting on April 15th, you can pay your own bills, or you can starve. That was your word. Doreen stared at me. I don't think she was seeing me. I don't think she was seeing anything. I picked up my clutch. I walked past my father. He did not lift his head. I stopped in front of Uncle Roland. I did not touch him. I just looked at him. And I nodded once. And he nodded once back, and he set his water down on the mantel and picked up his coat from the arm of the little green chair and followed me toward the hall. Behind me, Tanner stood up off the couch. He said, "Emma, hey, come on. Doreen was joking. She was joking, chick. Come on, sit down." I did not turn around. At the door, Peyton, still crying, said in a wet, furious voice, "You're just gonna leave? On Dad's night?" I stopped, one hand on the doorframe. I said without turning, "Peyton, it wasn't Dad's night, it was mine." I opened the door. The Cincinnati air, in the first week of April, was still cold enough to see your breath. The porch light was on. Uncle Roland walked out beside me, and the two of us went down the front steps of the house I had grown up in. At the sidewalk, Uncle Roland stopped. He looked at me. "You did it, Emma." I looked at his kind, tired, 65-year-old face. I said, "Not yet, Raleigh. I just started." He drove me home. He did not put the radio on. When he pulled up in front of my building in Over the Rhine, he put the car in park, but he didn't turn it off. He looked at his hands on the wheel. He said, "Your mother would be so..." He didn't finish it. I did not ask him to. If you have ever been paying for a family or for a friend or for a partner, and you have told yourself for months or for years that you just needed to give them one more chance, one more month, one more transfer, I want you to hear something. Boundaries are not punishment. Boundaries are the gift you give yourself after however many years of paying to be tolerated. The day you stop paying is the day you stop apologizing for existing. And if this story is landing with you tonight, I hope you find your one uncle at your fireplace. I hope you find the little green chair. Here is what happened next. On April 15th, 2026, 11 days after the party, there was no transfer into my father's Chase account. On April 18th, the mortgage was late. Doreen called me twice on the 17th, 3 times on the 18th, and 4 times on the 19th. I did not answer. On the morning of the 20th, I blocked her number. My father did not call me at all. On the 22nd, Uncle Roland called me. He had run into Tanner at a gas station in Norwood. Tanner stood there with his hands in the pockets of a puffy jacket he had owned since college and told Roland that the house had gone quiet. Peyton had spent a few nights on a friend's couch across the river, then come back. My father had barely left the living room. Doreen had started sitting at the kitchen table with a legal pad, trying to make the numbers work. In May, the bank sent a default notice. After the mortgage and utility bills kept going unpaid. Tanner took a night job at a self-storage place off Reading Road. Peyton found shifts at a restaurant in Kentucky and started asking friends about cheaper rooms. They were frightened. They were finally looking for work. Neither of them knew whether any of it would be enough. I did not feel triumphant when Uncle Roland told me. I did not feel joy. I felt the way you feel after you finish a very long shift, empty and clean. And there was no HELOC, no clever rescue, no new loan that made the problem disappear. There were only the bills they had always expected me to absorb, now arriving in their own names. I did not call. It was not my letter to answer. On June 6th, a Saturday already too warm for spring, I met Uncle Roland at Spring Grove Cemetery, beside the little dogwood in Section 12 where my mother had been for nearly 24 years. He came in his old brown coat and carried a small wooden box with a brass latch. He did not hand it to me right away. We stood beside the grave for a while, listening to the traffic beyond the trees. Then he said, "Your mother gave me this before she died. She said it was for you when you were old enough to know what you wanted to keep." The box was light in my hands. Inside were the things Amanda had set aside: 2 photographs of us at the zoo, a recipe card for cinnamon toast in her slanted handwriting, the tiny brown bird drawing she had made to go with the lullaby she used to sing wrong on purpose, and her cross-hatched silver chain. There was a note folded beneath it. "My darling M.A., keep what feels like home. Leave what hurts. Love, Mama." I read it twice. Then I put the note back in the box and lifted the chain out. Roland looked down at the dogwood roots. "I should have given it to you years ago," he said. "I thought I was protecting you from the old grief. Then I kept waiting for a better time. That was wrong." I shook my head. I did not need him to make himself the villain in a story that already had enough of them. "You gave it to me now," I said. I fastened the chain around my neck. The silver was warm from the box and from the sun. I stood there with my uncle for a long time, the dogwood in bloom above us. I did not talk to my mother. I do not do that. But in my head, I told her one thing. I don't need him. I don't need any of them. I did it on my own, because I am your daughter. That is where the story ends. Not with a call, not with an apology, not with a courtroom, not with anyone becoming a better person. It ends with a small box my mother had prepared, a chain around my neck, a dogwood over her grave, and a quiet man in a brown coat who finally put the truth back in my hands. If you are paying and still paying and wondering whether it is time to stop, remember this: you do not need 40 people in a living room to choose yourself. You do not need a microphone, a television, or someone else's permission. Sometimes the first proof that you belong to yourself is simply letting the next transfer fail to leave your account.